Negotiation strategies. There are four concepts that are important to understand before a negotiation. They will help establish a framework to base the negotiations. Before starting a negotiation process, it's important that you prepare and have alternatives to the negotiation. A minimum threshold for the proposed deal and understanding of the other party's position can help you prepare for a negotiation. BATNA is the acronym for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. It's a term coined by Roger Fisher and William Ury. It basically means the alternative you have going to a negotiation. It will help you know whether the deal makes sense or when to walk away. The idea is that you should never accept an offer that is lower than your BATNA. It is a point of leverage in negotiations, and you prefer course of action in the absence of a deal. Going to a negotiation with a strong BATNA will give you options on what to do if the negotiation fails to reach an agreement. As such, it's also important to try to identify the other party's BATNA if possible. If the negotiations fail, you know what you can use your best alternative. WATNA is the acronym for Worst Alternative to a Negotiation Agreement, similar to BATNA, but considers the worst case scenario that will happen if you don't reach an agreement in a negotiation. As important as it is to have a best alternative, it's also important to know your worst alternative so you can weigh your options with greater accuracy and hopefully better results. WAP is the acronym for walkaway position. It's the position or value you are willing to offer for an agreement. It identifies the least that you will accept or the highest price that you're willing to pay. It's important that this value is kept confidential. If the other party knows it, then you will be negotiating on a position of weakness. For example, you're negotiating the cost of a monitoring system. Based on your research and budget, you have a maximum price that you can afford for the job. Anything above that will break the negotiations, and you will have to consider your other alternatives. The WAP is also known as the reserve price when negotiating the purchase of goods or services. ZOPA is the acronym for Zone of Possible Agreement. This is the area or range in which a deal that satisfies both parties can take place. It's the set of agreements that potentially satisfy both parties. It's the overlap between the reservation price and the BATNA of the seller and the buyer. This is the ideal space to negotiate that will meet the needs of both parties. Even though the parties may have hoped for a better deal, both got a better price than their walkaway price. Anchoring is a strategy to establish a reference point around which negotiations will make adjustments. In some cases, this strategy is used to gain an advantage by being the first to put an offer on the table. This first offer becomes a strong psychological anchor. It becomes a reference point for any subsequent negotiations. For example, you are negotiating the terms of a partnership with another organization. By placing your terms first, you're anchoring the negotiation on your terms. To be successful in using this strategy, it's important that the anchoring offer is within the expected reserve price or walkaway price of the other party, and that you have a just justification for your offer. Framing is another strategy that focuses on a feature of the negotiation and disregards other features which fall outside this frame. For example, the negotiations with an organization for a partnership can be framed by focusing on the strategic benefits rather than on the administrative elements. That way, the focus of the negotiations will move around discussions on strategy and not be delayed by small details that can take much longer to agree. Here's a metric that is useful to understand other strategies that you can use during a negotiation. The matrix uses the same matrix developed for managing conflicts. These 5 strategies are based on the dual concern model. The dual concern model of conflict is based on 2 themes or dimensions. concern for the relationship, and concern for the outcome of the negotiation. The strategies from this model are accommodating, avoiding, collaborating, competing, and compromising. Accommodating. In this strategy, the relationship is more important than the outcomes. It means that as a project leader, you value more the relationship with the stakeholders with whom you are negotiating. For example, a key stakeholder is requesting some changes in your project. The changes are not significant but may add more work to your team. You negotiate the request but decide to accept the change to keep the stakeholder happy because you know it's a key stakeholder that you trust and you will need her support later. Use this strategy when the relationship is more important than the outcome, when there is a high trust amongst the parties, and when you're building goodwill for a later time. Avoiding is to defer the negotiation process until you have more time or options. In other cases, avoiding is a decision to use your best alternative to a negotiation agreement or BATNA and stop the negotiations because they will not meet your needs. For example, you need an important resource for your project that other project managers are also asking for. After analyzing your options, you decide to avoid the negotiation and defer the request for a later time when there is less demand for that resource. Use this strategy when you can defer it to another time, there is low interest in the relationship, and the outcome has little value. Collaborating is a negotiation strategy when the interest for the outcomes and the relationship are high. Here the goal is to achieve a win-win situation and find options to increase the value of the negotiation. For example, negotiating with a partner organization to work together in some key project activities, the strategy is to satisfy all concerned parties' interests and gain real commitment. Use this strategy when power and interest are shared, relationships are ongoing, and both sides can benefit from each other. Competing is the strategy to use when there is not much value in the relationship and more interest in the outcomes. This strategy is used when you are purchasing goods and services from a large market of suppliers, and you can use a competing strategy to try to get the most value for the project. For example, purchasing computers for the project team, you need to get the best price. Use this strategy when it's a one-time transaction, you have strong alternatives, and the value of the outcome is more important than the relationship. Compromising, the last strategy, brings a balance on the use of all the other strategies, win some and lose some. The agreement might not be complete, and some details are left out of the negotiation agreement. This strategy is used when there is not much time for the negotiation. Collaboration has failed to produce an agreement and both parties have mutually exclusive interests and goals, but a compromise will help set the tone for future negotiations.